Dr. Santos, you think it's okay if we go ahead and get started?
Let's see what are the numbers. I mean, we might as well get started. I think most folks are here, and if not, I know that we'll be hearing some from folks. So
Perfect. Just to honor the folks that showed up at 5, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Nam Nguyen, for those of you who I have not met personally, but I know you have received lots of emails from me tonight. And we also have Dr. Santos here. You want to say hi? Okay.
yeah, no, hi. Sorry, I was adjusting my lamp. Sorry.
It's okay. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we really get started into the meat and potatoes of this is that we will be recording this session, and so we'll be sending this out for you all to review should you need it later. I'll be sending you a copy of the slides as well and a handout. So don't feel like you need to feverishly take notes or anything like that. We'll go ahead and provide you all that information. Sound good? Hopefully you all can see the screen.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you would think after, 18 months of doing this, it would be a lot easier, but that's how things go sometimes. So the reason why we wanted to bring you all together tonight is I know all of you all are in some form doing a thesis, a capstone project, or in the new piloted capstone course. There's a lot of finishing items and steps that correlate with that. So we wanted to make sure that as you are making your timelines to finish by December, that you're building in these steps as well. So what we're going to be going over tonight are defense logistics, what ETD is and the ScholarWorks process. We'll talk about ADA formatting, ETD forms, as well as the ETD fee. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Dr. Santos, who will be chatting a little bit more over the next couple of slides.
All right. So as the slide mentions, we currently have set slots for these thesis defenses the week of November 15th through the middle of the next week, right before Thanksgiving. So November 23rd to Wednesday, Tuesday, around there. So we have a set time frame, and you'll see your classmates, at least with their committees, sign up for these times and then present their work. The assignment of these times has to be through the chairs because you have to coordinate the time with your full committee members. And those who are in the course will do stuff during the course with Dr. Holub. But for those who need to sign up for times and thesis defense slots, what you'll be doing is thinking about defending during that week. Of course, you'll be developing your written work and submitting that to your committee prior. But that slot is really meant for you to present your work in about 20 to 30 minutes. And then your committee and the public will have a chance to question you about the work you did. So that's why these are public defenses that are arranged during these times. Now, of course, as the asterisk says, if you need to arrange times outside these slots, and toward the end, I'll show you the slots that we do have for those who need to know or haven't yet decided. But basically, this is sort of a public viewing, public defensive thing. So even if you do things outside of the slots, we'll still publish that and make sure that everyone in the department and your classmates know when you're defending. We'll take questions for this process at the end, but at least this is where this is. Could you do next slide, please? Thank you. And then so basically what we'll do is we'll have both the rooms. So if you want to do this physically in person, if you're defending, you'll need to coordinate that with your committee chair. But all of the defenses will be done via Zoom. So you might be doing things in person, but everything will be online. These are the links. And for sure, when we start making these announcements, I'll include the link itself as well as the Zoom ID. If you're defending, the idea is that this is a formal milestone. This is a major accomplishment. And so we ask that you treat it as such. In person, if you're doing this, it would be in that same sort of formal presentation that one might do for like a business meeting. And although you're on Zoom, the expectations that the etiquette and the procedures or the treatment of the time is in the same way. So making sure that you do have a dedicated space, that things aren't too loud, that you're able to actually sit and listen and present. As well as answer questions and discuss at the end. Next slide, please.
I think those are your only 2 slides.
Ooh, okay, perfect.
Dr. Santos,
Thanks.
Do you think you could give some additional tips or suggestions that you might have in regards to defenses and what that might look like?
Yeah. So for those of you who are defending, and I'm sure that there'll be some version of this in the capstone course as well. But the idea is that one, you've been working on something, right? For some, it's that form of an in-depth literature review. Some, it might be this data analysis. Others are actually choosing to embark on this primary data analysis and primary data collection in some way, surveys, key informant interviews. And so the expectation of the defense is exactly that you do have a walkthrough of some background information, as well as presentation of your major research question, aims, and goals to get your project done. That background information should be good to set us up to understand what you did, right? Your methodology. The methodology should then inform your results because you're going to say, this is what I found, whether it be the data set, the analysis, the primary data collection, list of articles, and then in your discussion that you'll present, you'll be talking about, again, the literature, the analysis, what that means, the implications of your work. In that same way, that's the written work reflection as well, but this is the oral defense. So that's what you'll be expected to present. And remember that all of these theses and capstone presentations are in part evaluated via your chosen competencies. So for some, it will be the competencies that are both the foundational competencies and the health promotion competencies, and others will be the foundational competencies and the global health concentration competencies. So those are things, sort of major points to keep in mind. Now, once you defend, you have three options. You're either going to get passed with very minor edits, that would be sort of like the A. You'll get passed with major edits, or whether what the form clearly indicates as conditional pass, and you have time to get those fixes together. And then the third option, which typically doesn't happen, at least when you defend, but is passed with, does not pass and needs to retake the units. And if you're really at that point, typically you're not actually presenting, but should something go wrong, that's technically the third option. Now, the idea is that you defend, and hopefully you're very close to then submitting your written work afterwards. And that's the library. And I believe that Nam will go over some of those deadlines in just a little bit, but we can actually field some questions toward the end if you have more questions about the actual thesis or capstone defense process.
If I might add as well, I'm sure your committee chairs will make this suggestion, but should they don't, or if we can only emphasize it again, it's really, really important to practice these defenses, record yourself, watch yourself, practice in front of your friends and loved ones, or videotape yourself and send it to them. It could be, it's a big thing that you're doing. You're defending your research, your work. And so it could be a little daunting. You just want to make sure that you're able to easily and very thoughtfully share your work, as well as take any questions from not just your committee members, but the other faculty and community members that might be there.
Absolutely. I mean, if I could sort of piggyback on that, my students already know that they're going to be providing me with either live defenses on Tuesdays at Work in Progress, or recorded sessions where I can provide feedback. And if I don't get that, then I actually cancel the defense. No one is going to defend out of my part of the process unless they actually practice with me first.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and talk about what ETD is. And again, as Dr. Santos said, we can take some more questions about the defense process at the end. We'll just go ahead and start this. What ETD is, it's Electronic Thesis Dissertation Process, ETD. This whole process is managed through the university library. It can change from campus to campus, but typically it is the university library that oversees this. Dr. Carmen Mitchell is our specific scholarly communication library who works with all of the graduate students, both masters and our doctoral students through this process. And for fall, the fall deadline to get everything done, all the ETD items, so we'll go over what those ETD items are, is December 9th at noon. So what is ScholarWorks? All of you that are completing a thesis, a capstone project, even those in the capstone course, are required to submit your work to the university repository called ScholarWorks. Actually, this is not just the university, it's the entire CSU system. ScholarWorks is shared throughout all 23 campuses. So all students who are doing a master's thesis, a doctoral dissertation, and even faculty and staff that publish articles. It's all housed in ScholarWorks. So it's kind of neat if you haven't jumped in and taken a look at it yet, but you can go ahead and do a search, even searches on just public health articles or theses that have been submitted from cohorts past, so you can get an idea what's going on. But ScholarWorks is what you are actually submitting your completed work to by December 9th. So again, I'm going to keep on saying this December 9th deadline, so it's just ingrained in your mind. It's going to be muscle memory. December 9th at 12 p.m. is the final deadline for the university. Your final thesis or your final, my apologies, my dog is really excited in the background. Your thesis or your capstone paper has to be ADA formatted. And the final document has to have a signature page that's merged as the top cover. If you are in a group, so group capstone projects or the capstone course, your document only needs to be submitted once to ScholarWorks. So even if there's 4, 5 of you, 2 of you, that document only needs to be submitted once. So as I mentioned before, your document needs to be ADA formatted. What that means is if an individual wants to view your thesis or your capstone paper that might have some visual impairment, and they might have some software that helps them read your document, it needs to be formatted in such a way that that software can read it. The ScholarWorks team in the library, so that's Dr. Carmen Mitchell's team, can help you actually format your paper. You'll do need to submit that document to them by November 15th. For that formatting. I know it may sound easy to do, but if you have a lot of charts and tables and so forth, just do yourself a favor and give them your draft by November 15th, and they'll work their magic. They'll format it and they'll send it back to you. And it's important that I said that you can even submit your draft. If you only have a draft by November 15th, submit that, because they'll do their work, they'll send it back to you, and then you can just continue working on that draft that they send back to you, because it's all in that format. So again, if you need assistance with formatting, which we heavily suggest for ADA, and this is different from APA, this is ADA formatting, please submit it to the library by November 15th. Now, after you have defended your thesis or your capstone, as Dr. Santos said, it may come back with, awesome, no revisions at all. Great, good to go. You already have that ADA formatted. You can just merge your signature page to the top and send it to the library. If there's some minor changes, you're going to want to make those minor changes, put the signature page to the top and send it to the library. You can also, if you're not sure if your signature page has been formatted properly, because that wasn't included that first time around, you can resend it back to them and they'll go ahead and do that final check before you upload it to ScholarWorks. So they're an awesome team over there. Please definitely utilize their resources. So as I mentioned, there's going to be some forms that you will need to submit along with this whole ETD process. Because we're mostly virtual, all these signatures will be done electronically, and my team will be managing this process for you. We use Adobe Sign to e-sign all these documents, and in order to do so, we will ask that you submit some information to us so that we know what forms, what information the forms need to be populated with. And I'll send you all this information again. Just some tips. There's going to be a document that you will need to sign. You're always going to want to e-sign using your CSUSM Cougars email address. I know some of you at your work or you have a personal Adobe Sign account. Please don't use that. Use your CSUSM Cougars email address to e-sign. Now, in regards to the forms, specifically, you'll have 2 forms that will need to be done. The signature page, which is the top sheet of your thesis or your capstone paper before you submit it or when you submit it to the library. This is the document that tells the university that your committee has approved of your work and they have signed off on it. So the people that will sign off on the signature page is your chair and your second committee member. Then we have what's called a certification form. This certification form lets the library know a little bit more about your thesis or your capstone paper. It lets us know primarily one thing. Do you want to have open access to this paper, or do you want to embargo it? So what does it mean to have restricted access or to have open access? For the majority of you, you'll just say open access, meaning when you submit it to ScholarWorks, anybody can go in and look up, for example, Dr. Ashla Santos in there, and all of his work will be pull up in ScholarWorks. No problem, because nothing is, he has no issues with having open access with it. Some students who are currently, who may be using some of their theses or capstone project research to perhaps publish an article later on. Maybe they are currently working with another faculty member and using some of that data in that other work. They're going to likely want to embargo it for a little bit until that other article is published or that other project is completed. You can request to embargo your thesis or your project for anywhere from 1 or 3 years. Again, when it means to embargo is when someone goes into ScholarWorks, they type in your name, your document will not show until the embargo has been lifted. Dr. Santos, could you share a little bit more about the embargo, or when you've had your students perhaps use it?
Yeah, so some of the students that I work with are specifically taking up topics, either some of topics related to my own research or interests. And so what we do is we develop a master's thesis that revolve around that, with the agreement that we publish the thesis once it's ready. And so that publication process requires that embargo, because if we're going to get this in a journal, they like to see that no one is going to be seeing this except for through the lens of their journal. And that's why we'd embargo that, so then no one else can just sort of go and find the original thesis. That's probably the main reason why. Other reasons would be exactly as Nam mentioned, where there's some reason in terms of either data sharing or information that we just can't let it out yet. But for me, that the publication and having the journal's sort of first publication access would be the main reason why we do that. And there is one student that I'm working with now that will be doing that.
Perfect, thank you. And if you have any questions on should you or should you not embargo your work, just ask your chair. They can clarify that really easily for you. Now, 2 quick things, and let me just go back. These forms, again, they will be pushed out through Adobe Sign for the signatures. But I do want to make a note that the request for these signatures will not go out until after you've defended. So let's say you defend November 23rd at noon. The electronic request will not go out until that day at like 1 p.m. So don't worry about it. We got it on our end. We'll go ahead and manage that all for you. The signature page will go directly to your chair and your second committee member to sign. Once they sign, you will get a copy of it. There's nothing else you need to do other than to merge it on top of your final document. Your certification form, you actually need to sign that first before it can get routed to your chair. So that means after you've defended, I'll push the forms out, you'll get the email request. Please make sure that you sign it before it can go either to Dr. Santos, Dr. Hullop, Dr. Morton, or Dr. I, as the tenure track faculty of the department. Okay, so again, I want to reiterate, your signature page goes on top of your thesis or your project paper. Your certification form, you will sign it, it'll go to your chair, and then I will take that form and submit it to the library on your behalf. You don't need to do anything with the certification form except for sign it. Once it's been signed, it's good to go. The other component to the ETV process is the ETV payment. There is a $25 fee to go through this process, and basically that fee helps to upkeep ScholarWorks as well as to help pay for some of the library services like the ADA formatting and so forth. So you'll go ahead and submit an online payment through the site. You'll go ahead and get a copy of the receipt, and then I'll need for you to go ahead and forward me a copy of that receipt. I'll take that receipt along with the certification form, and I'll send that to the library on your behalf. So again, in regards to the ETV payment, just pay it, send me the receipt, and I'll go ahead and get that process for you. So here are your to-do items. Before you defend, so within the next week, you're going to submit your information so we know what items need to be populated in your forms. You're going to email your thesis or your capstone paper to the library so that they can ADA format it for you. You're going to pay your fee and then submit the fee to me. After the defense, you're going to get an email to e-sign your certification form. Once your signature pages have been signed off on your chair, by your chair and your committee member, you're going to go ahead and take that, merge it as a top cover of your document. You can send it back to the library for that final ADA checking. Once they give it good to go, you can upload that final document to ScholarWorks. I do want to recommend that that you hold off on uploading your document to ScholarWorks until you actually finish your certification form. Because again, they don't know what to do with your thesis or your project, your capstone project, until that certification form has come in. So let's go ahead and take a moment, take some questions. I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions?
I have a question. This is Ashley Lavignera.
Hi, Ashley.
Let's see. Okay, so we are defending sometime between the 15th and the 23rd. Is that correct? And where do we sign up for this?
So Ashley, remind me, are you doing an actual project or you're working with Dr. Holub in the course?
I'm doing a project.
Okay, so then who's your chair?
Morton.
So Dr. Morton is the one who will be confirming your time slot on that schedule. And so she has that. Let me share my screen just so people have a better idea of what this looks like. So all of the chairs were sent this list, and I know with my students, I've also shared this with them. So for example, you already see that one student here is assigned to 6:45 p.m. on Wednesday, November 17th. I would confirm with Dr. Morton when she thinks that you would be ready to defend. And so these time slots are the 15th through the 23rd as stated. But like I said, you and your committee, you, Dr. Morton, and your second member can decide to do it outside of these times. But then that just means that you have to make sure you get everything set up. So.
Okay, and then I had one other question, which was for the draft that's due on the 15th. I don't even have IRB approval. I haven't even got approval yet to conduct my survey. And so
Ashley, let me just stop you there. Why don't you stay a little longer after this session, and either you and I talk, or right after this session, you and I need to talk, because that statement right there has a lot of questions that need to be answered first. So why don't we talk?
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
How long are the thesis or capstone defense on average?
Yeah. So generally speaking, we allot an hour. I mean, there's some give and take. So notice that those times are listed as an hour and 15 minutes. But the expectation is that you probably should expect to present with slides for about, depending on your topic, as short as 20, but probably no more than 30. And then after that, your chair and your committee member, your committee will question you about your project, making sure that, you can actually discuss the project, talk about what you did, the implications, or if there's any clarification that's needed for another 10, 15 minutes. Then the questions open up to the public, meaning other faculty members, other students, other community members that have an interest in your topic. We've had alumni come back who are working for clinics and agencies around the country to view these public defenses. So after those public questions, then we are basically saying, okay, well, now the committee needs to discuss whether or not we're going to pass you, and then we bring you back, and then typically it ends with some announcement in some good way, typically, but also typically we have students continue on finishing their written work as well. But that's sort of the breakdown of the hour.
Okay, and this goes for capstones out as well, correct? Because I'm working in with the capstone group, so I just wanted to make sure that it's always the same average time.
Yeah, so that's where that 20 to 30 minute range comes in, right? So let's just say it's for a 4-person group, all 4 people will be up there. I'm assuming that your chair will then be directing all 4 of you to have participation within this presentation and defense, right? So yeah, but that's why that range of 20-30 minutes is there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I do want to add that you're more than welcome to invite your family and your community support to attend these defenses. I know some folks could be a little wary about that, but you've done a tremendous amount of work. You should be really proud. And I know that your support team will want to be there to continue to support you. So we do suggest, if you're comfortable, of course, that you invite your family, your community, your loved ones, anyone to attend.
I have a question. It's regarding more towards the forms that we need to submit. I'm doing a capstone project as well, and I'm just wondering, is the whole group going to get these forms? If you can review that.
Absolutely. What's going to happen is, although you will only need to submit and upload your final capstone paper to ScholarWorks once, everybody needs to submit forms. Everybody will get a signature page and certification form. Everybody in the group will need to pay the $25 fee. So it's sometimes helpful if you're in a group that you nominate or appoint a point person to make sure that everybody has paid their ETD fee and have their forms intact. Now for the signature page, it's going to look exactly the same for all of you, whether it be 2 people or 5 people, but really it's a certification form that shows that you as an individual have contributed and completed the component of your culminating experience. You're going to hear the terms culminating experience sometimes interchange with what MPH or public health, our department, calls the integrative learning activity. Integrated, is that right, Dr. Santos? I get that confused, but it's a culminating experience is what we call it at a university-wide level.
Yeah, and the accreditation terms, although slightly different, still the same thing, right? It's this cumulative experience, culminating experience that you guys are going through right now.
So is everyone in a capstone supposed to pay the ETD fee?
Yes, everyone in a capstone does need to pay the ETD fee.
That makes sense. I think I got confused. I assumed that one capstone, it was one fee, but that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no, that totally makes, that's totally understandable. Just again, to reiterate, everyone in a group work, everyone needs to pay the fees and everyone will do the forms. It's just a matter of, it only needs to be uploaded once to the library.
I just wanted to clarify, sorry, I was on a meeting with Dr. Holub at 5, so it was actually about the capstone class. I'm someone that's doing the capstone class, not the traditional capstone, and so I just wanted to double check that those of us in the capstone course also have to pay this $25 fee, because I didn't see anything about it in the syllabus, so I just want to clarify that it applies to everyone doing an integrated learning experience, correct?
Yeah, so everyone in
Okay.
Dr. Holub's capstone course still goes through the entire ETD process. So you'll be doing the forms and you'll be submitting the $25 fee. It may have not been included in the syllabi because it might have just been lumped in with the ETD process.
Okay.
But I'll ask Dr. Holub to make a note on that so that future syllabi for this course in the spring will note that.
Okay, sounds good. I will definitely watch the first half of this, like what I missed, but was there a deadline for that $25? Was it coming up soon, or?
I would say to try to pay it as soon as possible, because
Okay,
I and Dr. Santos could definitely attest to this. In the next couple of weeks, it's going to go in a blink of the eye. So anything that you can do, all of you, like as soon as possible, just to knock it off your checklist, go ahead and do it as soon as possible, because things are gonna just fly by. It's gonna be January soon. So I would recommend, well, at the very least, and again, I'll recap saying that I will send the video, I will send a checklist, but go ahead and get your ADA file formatted by November 15th and then submit your ETD fee as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you so much.
Other questions?
Where will the fee be paid? So is it going to pop up on my CSUSM, or I missed that, sorry.
No, good question. Let me go ahead and just share something really quick. Again, I apologize for my very needy puggle. So So this is the main page for the university library. Can you all see this? Good. For the ETD process. Now you'll go to this page, you'll select the submission process tab, scroll down, and then it'll say pay the fee. Just click that paying online link. And the reason why I'm not going to give you a hyperlink to it is it has this weird secured thing that's associated with a hyperlink. So even if I were to copy and paste it, it just it's kind of funky. So you're just going to go directly to the university library page, scroll down, pay the fee, click on the link to pay the fee. Again, once that fee is paid, send me a copy of the receipt. And I'll be sending you a document, a checklist with all of these web pages that you can go to. In fact, this is a document that you will be receiving, the action item and a due date.
And then just to clarify, every member of the Capstone group has to pay the fee, correct?
That's correct. Every member of the Capstone group has to pay the fee and has to complete the certification form and the signature page.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
This checklist, as you'll see, the first thing you need to do is I recommend that you review the library's information on the ETD process. There might be some verbiage that says, oh, submit this to us. Please disregard that because our college has our own student services department. We help manage this whole process for you all. So the only thing that you'll be submitting to the library directly is your ADA, well, your document to get ADA formatted, and then the final ScholarWorks submission. The second bullet point that we ask for you to do immediately, again, is to give us information on what items need to be populated in the forms. If you were to click this link, it'll bring you to this. So you'll just, it's pretty straightforward. Go ahead and fill it out. What you'll need to know is the final title of your thesis or your capstone project, because this will be listed in ScholarWorks. And you'll need to know, again, if you were going to provide full access to your document or embargo it. And then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So the top sheet that goes with our capstone project paper, that gets signed by all of us and we just attach that one sheet, is that correct?
So after your defense, the request for your signatures for the signature page, that top sheet cover, will
Right.
go directly to your chair. After
Okay.
your chair signs it. So I think, Monica, you have Dr. Holub as your chair, right? So it'll go directly to Dr. Holub to sign. Once she signs and approves, it'll go, an email request will go to your second committee member.
Mhm.
Once they sign, a copy of your signature page will be sent to everybody. So to you, to Dr. Holub and your chair or your second committee member. You'll then take that PDF and merge it as the top cover of your document.
Okay, and then that gets submitted to the library.
And then you'll take that final document and you'll upload it to ScholarWorks.
Right, just one of us does that in the group because we're a
Correct.
capstone group. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And that goes the same for folks that are in the capstone course, because I know that you all are working in groups as well. It only needs to be uploaded once. Elizabeth, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Hi. So my question is, once we defend, I didn't know Dr. Santos mentioned 3 options. After those 3 options, whatever is decided, what happens next? Let's say if it's once we do those adjustments that were made by our chair, what do we proceed from there? How do we go ahead and make sure that our project still is online?
So good question. So yes, so let me just talk it through as if, let's pretend, Elizabeth, that I'm working with you and you've just defended and I'm about to sign off on this form. Now, if I say minor edits and passing, then it's things like, oh, there's a few spelling typos, or maybe I'm just asking you to move one section here because it makes more sense, right? Those sort of minor things. So then the process would be, I give you a set of directions, you go and complete it, you represent it to me, meaning you just send it to me via email. And then typically everything gets checked off, okay, and then I sign the form to initiate that cover sheet signing process. And like Nam said, you'll get a copy when it's done. Now, if you go through some of, say, the example of major revisions, but conditional pass, then it's the same process. But if they're major revisions, then just sort of look at how many weeks you have after you defend. If you're defending during the week of the 15th, you have Thanksgiving, you really only have about a week and a half to get your stuff corrected before then you have to submit submit to me so I can review it, so then you can submit it to the library. But it's that sort of time frame after the defense that you have to fix it. But ideally, and for those of you who are my students that are still on, ideally you are as close to this is my work when you orally defend as possible. I understand that this is an accelerated program and sometimes a little bit more time is needed, but that's the sort of best case scenario.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, that helped.
Okay. And of course, there's other maybe smaller ways that we can think about managing that time, but that's really just sort of the basic frame or structure we want to think about.
Dr. Santos mentioned best case scenario. Now, let's say something unfortunate happens. Let's say the wrench gets thrown into things and you are able, well, either are not able to defend this semester, or you have defended and there's just too much work that needs to be edited in time to upload by December 9th. Two options. If it's that much work, then what will happen is your graduation will be pushed back until spring, and then you'll have the entire 16 weeks to manage whatever edits need to be done, revise, write. In most cases, you won't need to defend again, but some cases you'll want to defend again. So that's totally fine as well. If there are minor revisions that don't require any supervision, so you're not doing major writing, like you're not writing chapters, you're not still collecting data, there is an option that, again, you'll still be pushed back to spring, but you won't have to retake the entire course. We can enroll you in a course that the Office of Graduate Studies offers called Grad 699. It is at a lower fee, but the reason why it's at a lower fee is because it's just, this option is just because you missed the deadline for December 9th. So it's just small things. So it's really, if you don't make it by December 9th, there's a little bit of wiggle room, or we just push you back to spring, which is totally okay. It happens, life happens, it's gonna be okay. But I do wanna make sure that folks are aware that if you feel like in the next 2 weeks you're meeting with your chair and you're just so frazzled, really have that tough conversation with them. Be like, do you think this is feasible? Help me chop up these chapters to see what's gonna happen. Because as Dr. Santos said, you will most likely not defend if you don't have the majority of everything ready to roll. Is that accurate, Dr. Santos?
Absolutely, and that's the message I've given my students. So those who have already been pushed means that they won't have enough to defend. And those who were trying to get things set up that are still pushed was because they also admitted that they didn't have enough to defend. So those who are defending ideally are able to defend and in some way know that they're going to finish out well.
Other questions that we can help field? Okay. So again, just to recap, after today, maybe later tonight or earlier tomorrow, I'll be sending a link to the video of the session that we had, as well as your to-do list and a copy of the slides from today. At any point, feel free to contact me and ask for clarification. I know it's a lot of information, and you are in the middle of research and writing, so we understand that it could be a little all over the place. I will be sending a lot of weekly check-ins, like, hey, I don't have this from you yet, so you will have that support there. But we just want to make sure that you all understand what the overall overarching process of what ETD is, and that you have your best foot forward when it comes time for the defense. Other than that, do you want to add anything, Dr. Santos?
No, but I think maybe my message at this point is I mean, you guys already have, the things underway. You guys are doing things, right? It's not like we're putting more stuff on you. It's just more now about assembling what work you are doing. And so maybe that might be a nice, simple way of hopefully more calming way to think about this, that this is just really assembling the work that you've been working on over the course, over, your project, whatever that might be.
Perfect. All right. If anything else, then we'll go ahead and log off for the evening. Thanks so much for spending